Okay, so it's me, Swiss Dave. We are making risotto today. It's gonna be risotto with mushrooms, and in this case, I've bought some dry mushrooms. To be precise, it's Boletus edilis. In German, it's Steinpilz. In Italian, it's porcini. As far as I know, they don't have a specific name in English, which is a pity because it's like the most common mushroom to be used like in Europe, I would say. You've got champignon, of course, but this is the mushroom of the people. Anyway, the very best thing is if you have fresh mushrooms, like from the day, you know, just gathered. If you don't, dry mushrooms are a absolutely fine substitute. Otherwise, if you don't have the option to buy either fresh or dry mushrooms, you can resort to canned mushrooms, but that's like last resort. And if you don't have Boletus edulus, I don't know, then you might resort to using champignon. Although if it were me and if I didn't have access to this kind of mushrooms, I would just make risotto without mushrooms at all. I wouldn't stoop so low as to use champignon, but that's up to you. We have to put them in water so that they soak and they regain their H2O, right? I think I'm going to use about half of it. I'm cooking for 2 people, me and my roommate. I think half of it will be fine. So because the mushrooms have to soak in water for at least 30 minutes, if not even more, like I think 1 hour would be the best. We are going, like the very first thing you should do is put the mushrooms in water, so that you put them in water, and as you keep preparing the dish, the meal, they have time to soak. Right, so it's gonna be lukewarm water, not cold, not hot, as warm as you would make the milk that you have to feed a baby, and just let them rest. Just let them rest. How much, how many mushrooms you want to put in is up to you. And what we want to do now is prepare the broth. You should prepare about more or less 1 liter of broth. I mean, 1 liter is going to be way more than what you need if you're cooking for 1 or 2 people, but just to be sure, make 1 liter of broth. I'm using broth cubes. You can use either vegetable or meat-based broth. And now a very important thing to keep in mind is that the vast majority of the saltiness of the dish is going to come from the broth. The rice itself obviously doesn't have any broth. Mushrooms, don't have any salt. Mushrooms don't have any salt. So what you want is the broth to be extra salty. Like when you think it's salty enough, it's probably good to make it even more salty. You want the broth to be warm, not boiling hot, not cold, just warm. Now the good thing about risotto is that it's a normal dish, right? But it's basically a dish that everybody can eat. You might consider it a vegetarian dish if you so will. Even a vegan. Yeah, you could make a vegan risotto. I don't know why you would want to do a vegan risotto, but you could. This is rice specifically for risotto. I know we have this in this part of Switzerland. I know they have it in Italy. I don't know if that's a thing where you are from. This shouldn't be here. If you don't have rice specifically for risotto, I guess jasmine can do the job. About half a cup per person. So I'm cooking for 2 people. I'm filling a whole cup. And then, because we are fat fucks and we like to eat, I'm gonna add another half cup just for good measure. But today we are sticking to the traditional recipe that we use here, which is risotto with mushrooms and this. This is called luganighetta. It's a kind of sausage that is traditional here. It's extremely fat, extremely tasty. Now, how many onions? That depends on your taste. These are pretty small onions. I think I'm going to make maybe these 2. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this. See you in a little while. Now I've cut the onions in half. I've removed the peel, the skin, whatever, and I'm about to cut them finally cut them. Before I do that, to avoid crying because of onions, very simple thing, just cold running water, and just kind of wash them, rinse them a little bit. It doesn't completely get rid of the chemicals that make you cry in the onion, but it's better than nothing. It helps quite a lot. Yeah. See you in a while again. All right, I've cut the onions, and you might be wondering, how fine should I cut the onions? Well, keep this in mind. This is a people's recipe. This is a people's food, a people's meal. We're not doing anything fancy or dandy, right? We are cutting the onions roughly, you know. They're pretty big still, but that's how we want them. We're not being fancy nobles, having caviar or entrecôte. No. We're making fucking risotto. And we're also going to use some wine. Now, if you look up recipes, they will tell you to use white wine. That's bullshit. As I said, we're making a people's meal, right? This is not fancy shit. I just bought some local, very normal wine, whichever. You don't have to be fancy. You can get a shitty wine. You can get a shitty low price wine. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be better even. Now I'm gonna come back after I've opened this. Alright, so basically you want about 1 glass of wine. So we want to brown the onions, so to do that we're gonna have the stove on high temperature, so that, as I said, the onions can get properly browned. Actually, I usually use olive oil. I don't know why I use butter right now. That was a stupid thing to do. Anyway, yeah, you do use olive oil. What the fuck? Why did I use butter? Fucking idiot. Whatever. So we want the onions to get browned. After that, we're going to put the rice in it. We want the rice to also get roasted a little bit. So we're not going to add any liquid like right immediately after we put the rice. I've had a little bit of an inconvenience with the wine because, as I don't drink, I'm not used to opening wine bottles, and I fucked it up, and I had to use a fucking knife to scoop the the cork out of the bottle. It was kind of cringe, but what can you do? There we go. And as I said, we want the rice to toast a little bit, so try to move it around, stir it a little bit so that all of the rice can get properly roasted and brownish. Not for too long, just a couple, like 1 minute, not even. And once the rice is all... Who's making noise? Someone's making noise outside, I hate it. And that's it. So now we want to do this. That's very good, very good. Let the rice absorb the flavors of the wine. And this is actually too hot. During the cooking, I'm gonna lift the pan to avoid too much heat. During the cooking, we want the rice to cook at medium temperature. Risotto is a dish that cooks for a long time at low temperature. Not low temperature, but medium, you know, medium temperature. If you see it boiling, then it's not good. Boiling is not good. Yeah, and basically we want to gradually add broth to the pan throughout the cooking, as with time the broth you add evaporates, and this whole process, which is the main part of the cooking. Now, if possible, you do actually want to stir the risotto quite a lot. Certainly you don't have to do it the whole time, but it's a good thing to stir for as much as you can. Now, an important thing to keep in mind is that you should, of course, keep trying the risotto as it keeps cooking. Still needs to be cooked, but you know, could almost be done. Now, it's very important to keep in mind that when you think the risotto is almost done, that's when you should stop cooking it, because we're gonna let it rest for a little while. We're gonna add some stuff off the stove, and in that time period the risotto is gonna cook for a little bit more. So when you think it's just about to be done, but I mean just about to be done, consistency wise, that's when you want to put it off the stove. Yeah, I have the last few ingredients. The mushrooms that I have dried out, I've filtered the water. Saffron. Now, saffron is a very powerful spice. You don't need a lot. In my case, they come pre-portioned. This is one portion, so as you can see, it's very little, very little powder, very little saffron powder. You don't need more. I've grated quite a lot of Parmesan cheese, which I will use both in the pan and I will sprinkle on top of the finished dish. And this is a creamy soft cheese that I will use towards the end to make the whole dish more creamy. Now, I'm gonna put the saffron, and with the saffron it should help with getting rid of this terrible poo color and make it yellowish. You should be able to already see how it's getting much more yellowish, and it adds a little aftertaste, a little hint of a taste that, in my opinion, is very nice. Most people will tell you that you either do risotto with mushrooms or with saffron. I use both. I don't respect people who say that. And I mean, look at this. This color is already much more inviting, much more appetizing. Even just the color should be reason enough, but it also adds a little bit of an aftertaste that goes very well. So the saffron is done. I'm gonna add some Parmesan, not too much yet, because the The rice still has to cook for a while. There we go. Just a little bit, a hint of cheese, of Parmesan cheese. That's good. That's good. And the mushrooms, they don't need to really cook. You just need them to warm up, basically, and that's it. I'm thinking I should have used the whole package of mushrooms, to be honest. This looks like a meager. Is it meager or meager? Meager? I think it's meager. Meager? There are not very many mushrooms. There's not as many mushrooms in here as I would like. But what can you do, really? What can you do? Now, because the rice is basically almost done, and I want to put it off the stove soon enough, I want to prepare the sausage. Now the broth, I'm gonna move it. Yep. At this point, I can add this. Make it properly creamy. If you're vegan, I don't know what you can use instead of this, to be honest. I really don't. If you're vegetarian, you can just use this. If you have a Parmesan crust, stick it in there. Add some flavor. And yes, I served the risotto, cut up the sausage, put it here, sprinkle some more Parmesan on top, and that's it. That's a risotto. Enjoy. Bon appetit.